Hi, this is Dr. Pike again for week 4 of LDR350. We're going to be going over the Gamble and Gamble, Chapter 6, Listening Like a Leader. So, you have to be open to be a leader. And when we mean you have to be open, you have to be willing to have the give and take with the person that you're leading. Listening has an impact on relationships. Listening is different than hearing. It is a deliberate process dependent upon a complex set of acquired skills. Peter Drucker, founder of the leadership development field, stated, "The leader of the past knew how to answer. The leader of the future will know how to ask. Asking only works if the leader is prepared to listen to the answer." Now, we understand that asking questions will only yield information if one is prepared to listen. There are different styles to listening, the first being people-centered listening, and it uses supportive listening skills to focus on feelings and emotions of others in an effort to find common areas of interest so that both parties can relate effectively to one another. This leader will quickly pick up on the mood of others. Action-centered listening style uses informational listening skills to identify what is important in the message. Leaders using this style will want speakers to get to the point quickly and tire easily of disorganized speakers. This speaker will question the assumptions speakers make, in effect second-guessing them by proffering alternative explanations. The next style is content-centered listening style, and this focuses on the speaker's facts and details. This leader likes to be intellectually challenged, thinks things through, uses critical thinking skills, and enjoys playing the devil's advocate. He or she will ask pointed questions and will dismiss any information that is not from an expert. The next style is the time-centered listening style, and this looks for messages to be delivered succinctly as they value efficiency. This leader looks for bullet points and will often set a time limit for message delivery. This leader is effective in emergency situations but is otherwise considered ineffective. Kitty Watson and Larry Baker in 2000 were researchers, and they determined that 40% of us have one primary listening style. 40% are style switchers. We want to listen to content, but we want what we are listening to be delivered efficiently. And 20% have no favored listening style due to the apprehension or burnout. Now let's discuss the listening practices of leaders. The decentered leader, there's a refusal to place a focus on others while listening instead of to themselves. This leader ignores his or her ethical responsibility to listen and understand others. This creates a communication problem, and it can be avoided. To prevent this, a leader should regularly employ 3 types of listening: comprehensive listening, which is listening to acquire knowledge; critical listening, listen to decide whether to accept or reject a message by weighing its usefulness, soundness, and accuracy; empathetic listening, listening to understand the feelings and perspectives of followers or stakeholders. This particular type of engagement requires 3 specific skills: empathic responsiveness, experiencing of an emotional response that corresponds to the emotion of the other person; perspective taking, the placing of self into another person's shoes; and sympathetic responsiveness, expression or compassion and concern for the situation, and this is usually demonstrated in the other person's face. Empathic listening also uses 2 additional competencies. It's the ability of the listener to read nonverbal cues, and also the ability to paraphrase. When paraphrasing, the leader restates what the sender says, feels, and means to the sender's satisfaction before responding. The egocentric leader, and what they believe in error, is that others need to understand them, but they don't need to understand others. They will demonstrate one or more of the following unethical listening practices. Fraudulent listening, and this is where the leader pretends to listen while the words of others fall on their hearing, but not on their listening ears. Monopolistic listening, and this is where the receiver of the message is intrigued with their own thoughts and ideas, and they're convinced that listening to others is a waste of their time. Leaders will deliver monologues rather than engage in dialogue. The next one is completive listening. The egocentric leader thinks that they have all the answers, and they never quite get the whole story because their minds race ahead and they've already filled in the blanks in the story being listened to. Usually, this is erroneously. Selective listening is paying attention only to those portions of a speaker's remarks that interest them. Avoidant listening is simply closing your ears to the information that you wouldn't want to deal with. Defensive listening, and this is practiced by the egocentric leader by often masking insecurities. They assume that others will criticize them, therefore interpret remarks as personal affronts or attacks. And be mindful of the attackers. They lie in wait to undercut speakers and challenge them when a mistake is made. Feedback, the response connection. Part of a leader's function is to scan the environment, to relate what he or she discovers about the operating norms of the organization, detect deviations from these norms, question each of the norms' relevance or appropriateness, and respond by initiating corrective action. When we define feedback, we know that it consists of all the verbal and nonverbal messages that a person consciously or unconsciously sends out. And this is in response to others' communicative behavior. It is important that leaders give out feedback as well as receive feedback from others. It can serve as a weather vane of leadership, enabling others to share plans and focus on concerns and reactions of others. We want to be cognizant of the type of feedback that we utilize with the receiving party. Part of a leader's function, and we've said this before, is to scan the environment. So in that, we want to employ what we call evaluative feedback. And this is an opinion stated or a positive or negative statement is made. Positive evaluative feedback reinforces behavior, causing it to continue in the direction that it's heading. Negative evaluative feedback can help extinguish behavior judged inappropriate or ineffectual. Industrial psychologist Dan Tosti determined that positive feedback is best delivered immediately, while negative is best delivered right before the opportunity for the undesired behavior can occur. This transforms the negative feedback into more of a coaching session. Non-evaluative feedback, when it's provided, is non-directive in that no overt attempt is made to direct the behavior of another. It is designed to help the listener learn more about another person's feelings and thoughts. The leader should simply describe the question or thoughts that indicate our interest in the other person's communication. We can probe, and that's asking for additional information. We try to understand, which is demonstrating comprehension of what the person said, and then we try to support by acknowledging the importance of what the other person is sharing. So let's briefly go over what an I message is. And this indicates that the user's own expressed thoughts and feelings and refrain from shifting responsibility from themselves to another. An example of an I message would be saying, instead of "you're not making yourself clear," the leader would state, "I'm not understanding your point." iMessages have 4 parts: clarifying your feelings, explain what behavior you feel elicited such feelings, define the behavior you find objectionable or taking issue with, and offer your solution to the problem. After offering the feedback, a leader should solicit input from the recipient to gain interpretation from his or her own behavior. Feed-forward impulse is thinking through the impact your remarks will have on another person, modifying them to enhance their usefulness to the other person. The significance of the leader's response is that both while the speaker is talking and when the speaker stops. If you're responding to a speech, be supportive and demonstrate that you are listening through words like "I see" and nonverbal cues like a head nod. Paraphrase the speaker. Repeat in your own words what the speaker has said. Analyzing is offering your own slant on what the speaker has said. Supporting is expressing agreement with the speaker. Empathy is expressing that you understand and share their feelings. What's important is that you don't stonewall, staying silent, and non-verbally expressive. But this can also be the eye roll in the crowd, the person looking up and long sighs or long yawns, crossing of the arms, the posture that they're sitting in the chair, they lean back in their chair. You want to be supportive of leadership, and you want to be able to have that person feel like they're being heard. Now, moving on, we're going to feed back the response connection, but we're going to discuss coaching approaches and the listening learner. Coaching is a supportive relationship in which leaders help others develop their skills. The 2 main coaching styles are directive and non-directive. The directive coach is ego-involved. The leader assumes the position of the expert and knows what the person should do and how he or she should do it. Rather than address the needs of the person being coached, the directive coach serves as a model and seeks to have the person emulate him or her. This can be a time saver, but it limits the interaction of the people involved. In the non-directive coaching, the leader sees theirself as a facilitator of personal growth. It is a partnership with the subject setting their own goals and working with the leader to develop those skills. This type of coach needs to be a skilled listener, one who asks questions instead of giving directions. Lastly, let's talk about the listening rules. And it's very important to resist certain things. Resist the impulse to talk more than you listen. Resist technological and other distractions. Leaders need to make good eye contact and be attentive so that no important information is missed. Being fully attentive will aid in gaining a sense of the person's emotional reactions. Resist the rush to judgment. Commit to understanding an idea before you judge its merits. Snap judgments contribute to tuning out when you should still be tuned in to what other people are saying. First listen, then verify your understanding, then assess. Others will feel heard and it will make a great commitment to you as their leader. Resist thinking that members of different cultures listen similarly to the members of your culture. And that's very important to understand. This takes us to the end of the lecture of Chapter 6. I want to thank you for hanging in. We went over a lot of information, and please click on the next lecture for Chapter 7. Have a good night.